What's up, everybody? It's Broken Bones here, and welcome to Redstone 101. Today, we're going to be learning all about redstone repeaters, these guys right here in my hand. We're going to be learning all about what they do and how you can use them in your own redstone builds. So welcome to Redstone in a Box, everybody. If you tuned in with us last week, we covered redstone, and we covered a few of the things that we'd used in our demonstrations. So if you're a complete noob at Minecraft, you could understand that video and how redstone works. But we're not going to be covering some of those things today because we've used a lot of the similar ones. In this video, we've used redstone lamps and observers and things like that, other than repeaters. So we're going to learn all about repeaters and how they can be used. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to learn about repeaters is delay and pulse length. We're going to learn about how these guys not only create delay, but also can alter the pulse length of a pulse. Now the first thing, delay, as you can see there's 4 different stages of a repeater. There's 1 tick, 2 tick, 3 ticks, and 4 ticks of delay, depending on what setting you have it on. Now what that means is that obviously if you have a signal coming in, you can see that when I turn that lever on, it's almost instant, but not quite because there's 2 ticks of delay. It's not as fast as this one. This one's nearly instant, and this one's even slower. As you can see, it's a little bit slower than this one's really slow. So you can really notice the delay on that one. So that's the difference between 1 tick, 2 tick, 3 tick, and 4 tick repeaters, is they just add more delay. Now that also changes the pulse length that goes into a repeater. If you have a pulse length that is less than what the repeater is showing, up to 4 ticks, it will alter it depending on however many ticks you have your repeater set to. For instance, if you have a single tick pulse coming into a 2 tick repeater, it will obviously turn that single tick pulse into a 2 tick pulse, and same thing that goes forward. So if you have a single tick or a 2 tick pulse going into a 3 tick repeater, no matter how long the pulse is, it'll be converted into 3 ticks. Same thing goes for a single tick and a 2 tick and a 3 tick pulse. If you put that pulse into a 4 tick repeater, it will come out as a 4 tick pulse. So now that you know the basics of repeaters, let's show you how to add delay. So if you wanted to add delay, you literally just go ahead and stack these guys up in a line as far as you like, depending on how much delay you actually need. Now, as I said before, you can have it on 1 tick, 2 tick, 3 tick, or 4 ticks of delay, and the rest of these are all on 4 ticks, and you're going to be able to see here the delay going through. So as you can see, it is delayed by 4 ticks, but obviously when you turn it off, these earlier repeaters that are set to 1, 2, and 3 ticks go a little bit faster than the ones that are set to 4 ticks. So adding delay is actually quite simple, as all you have to do is place these repeaters one in front of the next and go ahead and count the amount of ticks you have set on each repeater, and that'll tell you how many ticks of delay you have in your circuit. Now moving on to adding pulse length, you actually use the delay that's built into the repeater to go and add pulse length to your circuit. Which, as you can see, I've made a pulse lengthener right here in front of us. Now this pulse lengthener adds 11 ticks of pulse to whatever pulse length you put in to the input, which is represented right here by our lever, and it adds 11 ticks to our output, which is represented by our lamp over here. Now the reason why that it puts in 11 is because you have 12 ticks of delay right here, minus the 1 the startup over here on the side. This can be increased inside just by adding more repeaters and making it bigger if you need to, and just adding more redstone to connect up your circuit. So to get things started, let's go ahead and show you how this works. So basically what's going to be happening is you have the input, which is going to come into your 1 tick repeater and power this lamp up almost instantly, while these other 2 repeater lines power up a little bit more gradually. So these guys will be powering the lamp too, but not as quickly as this one. Then what's going to happen is when we turn it off, same thing's going to happen. This repeater is going to turn off, then these repeaters are going to turn off, but then after 12 ticks, these repeaters are going to turn off, which adds a total of 11 ticks, because 1 minus 12, to our circuit. So as you can see, I can demonstrate that right here. So as you can see, our lamp turned on almost instantly right there. Now when I turn it off, it's going to take a second for it to turn off right there, because the signal's still going through our repeaters over there, which is how you lengthen a pulse. So I'm pretty sure that most of you knew that repeaters add delay and that you can make a pulse lengthener with repeaters, but locking repeaters is a cool feature, and it's not used very often, but you can actually lock a repeater from having any power put into it, or you can actually lock it in the other position where if it's on, you can lock it in that position, which means that it doesn't have to have power, it'll always create power no matter what. For this next one, I covered this in the last video with redstone, but it does apply to repeaters too, so we're going to cover it here with direct powering versus indirect powering. As you can see right here, we have a lamp that's set next to a block that this repeater is powering, and that is called being indirectly powered, which means that the lamp itself isn't being powered, the block's being powered, and the lamp is just next to the block that's being powered. If you want to directly power something, the repeater has to be facing right into it. And now to take some of the knowledge that we just learned and combine that with last week's redstone knowledge, we're going to go move on to block powering. Now, block powering can be either a nuisance or it can be helpful depending on what you're trying to do. And here I have an example of a nuisance. Now, this circuit may look like it might work if you go ahead and turn that lever off. It's going to go ahead and bring that piston down, which this observer is going to send a pulse into that redstone. But as you can see, it does a little bit more than that. And you might not understand why that's happening. That might be confusing to you, and that's because this block right here is getting powered by that observer powering that redstone, which indirectly powers that piston over and over and over again, which we just learned about direct powering and indirect powering. So a way to get rid of that completely is to go ahead and not power that block, which as you can see right here, we've used a repeater to go ahead and get rid of that problem. And now when you turn that circuit off, we still get our pulse out of here, but we don't have any extra indirect powering created by the redstone going on and off. Now, also too, there are some blocks in the game that don't get powered at all, and you can use that to your benefit as well, such as like glass and things like that. It has to be a solid block or some type of block that can be powered. Signal strength is always important. We learned a little bit about signal strength last week with redstone, and that's using redstone in this demonstration as well. So as you can see, when you flick this lever on, we're getting a signal strength of 15, then 14, 13, 12, and 11, and it decreases all the way out until it gets to 15, which you can see with this repeater, because as it doesn't matter what signal strength comes in, it can be the lowest possible. As soon as it hits a repeater, it'll boost it right back up to level 15, which again 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, all the way on through until the signal finally dies out, which it has right here. But a cool thing with repeaters is because you can actually power redstone with a block in front of it like that, you can actually use that to gain one more block of signal strength out of your repeater and finally reach the destination you're actually trying to get to, which is actually pretty cool because we just learned about block powering and we also just learned about signal strength. Last week you saw us take redstone all the way up to the top of those towers over there, but you cannot do that with repeaters. Repeaters do not transfer power with elevation. As you can see, I've got a repeater leading into a block with another repeater on it, which would work with redstone, but does not work with repeaters. The repeaters have to be on the same plane to work, and you can do that with redstone, but again, you're using redstone and getting away from repeaters. Bud powering, or block update detection powering, is something that can be either a nuisance or helpful depending on how you use it. Now, over here we have an example of something I've done in the past where I try to get around powering a redstone component of some sort by putting a repeater on top of my redstone line, making sure that it doesn't get directly powered. Now, as you can see, I turn my signal on and nothing happens, so I'm like, yay, everything works. But then something else happens, and I'm like, oh, that wasn't supposed to happen, and that's because it is getting bud powered by these two blocks right here. These two blocks right here are powered, which is bud powering that one, so as you can see, if I turn that off, it still doesn't know that it's unpowered until it gets an update of some sort. So to get around that, you can either throw multiple repeaters in, which would mess with your tick count because you're going to be adding ticks. So to get around that, you'd have to add slabs like this right here, and you'd still have to have a repeater in the middle because if you have redstone on that, it will power that redstone component. So as you can see here, though, we can turn that on. We get no powering of any sort and no update powering of any sort, so that's pretty cool. And to give you a conclusion of what bud powering is it's the least indirect form of powering there is. So you have direct powering, which, as you guys know, is when a repeater or redstone goes directly into a block. And then you have indirect powering, which is when a repeater goes into a block but something's connected to it. And then bud powering is when something's not even connected to it, but it is still powering it and it doesn't even know it. So if you turn that on, this is powering that block, but it is not operating these pistons here, and that's because they are bud powered, which means they are on. They are being powered, but they don't know it until they get an update. So as you can see, that one's got an update, which now it knows it's on, and then if this one gets an update, that one now knows it's on, and when you turn them off, they don't know unless you get them both to update like that. So you can use this to your advantage, or you can use it to your disadvantage, depending on if you did it on accident or if you did it on purpose. And regardless of what you're powering or how you're powering it, you're going to want to count your ticks on your repeaters, and that's demonstrated right here in this example. So this example shows you the impact that the amount of ticks on your repeaters have. Now say we wanted to get this block to go into this position right here, you'd have to mess with these repeaters because right now it's not happening. You can go and click this lever as many times as you want, and as you can see that these pistons aren't working together in a fashion to go and get that block over here. So you'd have to mess with the ticks. You'd go to have to make sure that this piston retracts first, this piston retracts second. So if we had 1 tick and 2 ticks, we can play with that and see what happens. Which, it didn't pull the block back, but that's okay. We can add 1 more tick of delay here and see what happens now. There we go. Now we got the block back in that position. But say if we wanted to get that out in this position now, so we wanted to do the exact opposite, you can't just power it again. You have to power it up a different way, which means that you'd have to alter the way that these are and go ahead and change the ticks back to the way they were, and that'll go ahead and get your block out there. So make sure to count your ticks, because when you change the ticks, your circuit's going to behave very much differently. Now, for instance, if you wanted to have this block right here not only be pushed out in this position, but also be retracted and pulled over into this position, you would have to have multiple inputs, because you'd have to have one input like this with 1 ticks and 2 ticks. Then you'd have to have another input over here with 3 ticks and 1 tick to go ahead and make it do the opposite. And that's represented right here, having multiple inputs on different devices. So as you can see here, we've got several different ways that you can actually power a certain redstone device, and you can power it from underneath, you can power it on the side, you can indirectly power it on the side, you can also power it from above, just like that, with having a repeater go into the side of it just like that. And these are all the different ways that you can actually put an input into a redstone device to make it do what you want it to do. So already you can see that if you needed a 1 tick repeater on this piston, but you also needed a 3 tick repeater, you could use 2 of these different variations to go ahead and get that input into your circuit. And when you have your circuits all tangled up with each other and things are starting to collide, it can get kind of hectic with all these different circuits running into the same different things, which is usually called continuous powering, when you have a circuit that goes right back into itself and loops around. And that's demonstrated right here by this circuit, which we just turned it on, but when you turn it off, it doesn't turn off because this repeater keeps powering itself in an infinite loop, which is something that most people don't want in their circuits. You can use it if you like, and if that's what you're going for, then great. But if not, this is one of the symptoms to look for. Make sure that you're not continuously powering your repeaters. And to get around that, you can use a slab, because last week in the redstone video, we learned that redstone can go up slabs, but can't go down slabs, and that's demonstrated right here. So as you can see, we can take a repeater and go ahead and power up everything that we need to power in this line, but we can also cut the power from going backwards through the system with this little slab right here. And as you can see, when we turn it off, the whole system turns off, which is pretty nice. Now over here, there's another type of infinite powering, which is called looping, and that's demonstrated right here, which means that you can put a short pulse into it, and it'll continuously loop back and forth just like that, and that'll go ahead and continuously go infinitely. And if you know how to use repeaters in another fascinating way, or you think I've missed something in today's video, don't be afraid to go off on your own and test new things for yourself, because I don't know everything, and neither does anybody else. We all test new things and find new things that work, and that's how the good redstoners get good, is we keep testing these things out and finding out what works and what doesn't. For instance, I found out that redstone could be put on top of a piston. I've never seen that done before in a tutorial, and it actually works here on PlayStation 4. It actually works, so I wanted to see if other components could be put on top of a piston, like a repeater, and that doesn't work. So as you can see, we've just learned right now that redstone works, but repeaters don't on top of a piston. That's just a mistake that I had made, and we learned from it. So that's actually pretty cool. So even if you're wrong, doesn't matter if you're wrong or right, you can still learn from your experiences with testing with redstone. So that's always something good to do. Go ahead and test new things regardless of what it is, and you'll learn even more about redstone and how to use it. But that's going to do it for today, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy today's Redstone 101 video. I had a lot of fun, and if you guys did too, make sure to hit the like button for me, subscribe if you guys are new, ring that notification bell, and share this video with all your friends. I'm Broken Bones, and I will see you guys next time. Take it easy, everybody.